Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Wednesday Album Club. I'm one of your hosts, Marty. What's going on? It's good to see everyone. Kellen, how are you today?
Doing good. Yeah. Happy to be back. We'll have a little bit of change of pace after our sad, gothic, apparently controversial theater of tragedy.
Who knows?
Little change of pace.
A little change of pace. What's been going on in Castle Killing for Company? Anything good?
Yeah. So in terms of what's been spinning my way, Marty was kind enough to send me a quite handsome group of CDs that arrived this week. One of them
was also Zoller. Zoller had a hand in this too.
I'll give a good credit to Zoller for this, but one of them was this Mortalized compilation. For those who don't know, this is Tafuki Matsubara of Gridlink fame, his original grind band. So Japanese grindcore. This is a compilation, essentially. I think the band is now no longer active. Gridlink did put out an album last year, and Tafuki Matsubara has his own project that bears his own name now. But a really cool sort of a grindcore that emerged out of Japan in the 21st century. If people who aren't familiar, this is a cool addition to a lot of brutal death metal, but this was an interesting one that sort of stuck out in the pile. So big thanks to Marty and Zoller for sending that my way. And this is, for me, a favorite, probably one of my favorite bands. I've been spending a lot this time with Destroyers of All by Ulcerate. Their Willow Tip era is very, very near and dear to me. And I love this band, but I was spending a lot of time with this one driving back and forth today in the car and enjoying this one, revisiting this record a lot. So that's what's going on in Killing for Company.
Right on. Jim, hello. Good to see you, my friend. What's been going on?
Oh, not much. I ate too much before the show, so if you see me like about to barf, you know why. War Master, surprising no one listening to both or again and again. This is actually one of my favorites. So, my first CD of theirs. More old stuff. Years of Decay.
Great record.
The Mighty Overkill. Love this record. Front to back. It's just amazing. It's so good. And Samhain Final Ascent, or Sawa, however the hell you say it. I say Samhain, but whatever. Good compilation. Got the Unholy Passion stuff on side B, and side A is more the weirder stuff, but good for a chilling night at home type of deal. And finish it off with a little bit of French Black Death, Massacre, Final Holocaust. Yet another good one.
I've not ever heard that band.
Really?
Never.
Dude, you absolutely have to check this out, dude. I think you'll like it.
I think I probably would. I don't know why it's evaded me all these years. Just hasn't got around to it.
Kind of like a Possessed meets Creator vibe, sort of.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool. Really cool. And the vocals are awesome. They're just kind of very, very deathy vocals for the time, for the era. Very death metal, and you're like, whoa, hey, So it's a really cool mix, of pre-death metal stuff. So
right on. Okay, TJ, how you doing? And what's been spinning up in your neck of the woods?
Oh, well, how am I doing? I would, I'm doing so well that I should run a contest and let somebody win to come celebrate how well I'm doing. That's what I ought to be doing. So
the rules are always the big question. No one will understand the contest.
I'm not here to hold everybody's hand. And, I make everything as plain as I can. And if you can't figure it out, then stop playing the game at home. Just stop it. and part of the, as for today, it's like, Kellen, do you know how much, it's funny, Jim, he went right to Bolt Thrower after theater. You know how much Bolt Thrower I had to listen to get that shit out of my head? I had to listen to all of it. That's how much I had just to remember, but then I got sucked back in. I finally got my copy of this OG Press's Celestial Seasons
Great album.
Solar Lovers. I thought they had broke up, and they actually released a bunch of stuff between 2000 whatever and then they put out two records in 22. And I was listening to that today, and that's actually really good. It's more akin to this. They went through like a Caius phase in the middle of their career, as it were, and doing that whole kind of desert stoner rock thing, which is really weird. But I was listening to that, and then a bunch of stuff I don't have quite yet. Ben had mentioned I finally got through listening to the Fur Bowl. So I really dig, like Sweet Death, HM2 style bands, and I remember seeing this band back in the day, and the name, and just being like, oh yeah, well, that's gotta suck, obviously. and they're excellent. It's really good.
Yep.
And what else? There was something else that I was checking out too. I don't know. I've been all over the map, minus the Bolt Thrower, and I can't think for the life of me what it was. But anyway, just searching, looking for new stuff. Oh, I was also listening to the new Job for a Cowboy. You can boo and hiss all you want. It actually reminds me that it's good. It reminds me a lot of Aborted, really. I was kind of surprised at how much I did like it. I might actually end up buying it. I can't remember what the hell's the name of it. Moon Healer. Yeah. So whatever, dude, it's good. Whatever. If you haven't listened to it, I was surprised. I didn't expect it to be as cool as it is. So, because I kind of blew those guys off most of their career, and then I just wanted to see what they were doing, and I was really surprised. I mean, it's definitely modern, but it reminds me. It sounds a lot like Aborted, but compared to a lot of the modern bands that they kind of emulate, sound like they write riffs and stuff. They're not just chugga syncopated, and then obvious. It's got the obvious stuff, like the drummer that plays, the drums on the album sound completely inhuman and probably programmed and whatever. But I mean, but still, I was kind of surprised. So anyway, yeah, that's the extent of it pretty much.
All right. Well, the last couple of weekends, I've been planning little day trips for me and the kid to get out of the house, little adventure. Last weekend, I found a record store just opened up in Cadillac, Michigan called... What the hell is it called? I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember the name. GT Vinyl. Went in. They didn't have a lot of metal. I had some, but mostly hard rock in the used bin. Good prices. And I picked this up, and man, I've been enjoying listening to the shit out of this record. High and Dry, Def Leppard. Man, I don't remember this being this good, but I really like it. The vocals are great on it. The first side A in particular, what do we have? High and Dry, You Got Me Running, Let's Go, Another Hit and Run, Lady Strange. Good songs. It's excellent hard rock. I mean, Mutt Lange did produce this one, but he hadn't bubblegummed them yet. He didn't do that until after Pyromania. But yeah, I also got On Through the Night as well, but I haven't got there yet. I don't much care for that as much, but yeah. I enjoy the crap out of this record. It's been fun. Also, another pickup I got from there. Talking Under Lock and Key.
In my dreams, it's still the same.
Will the sun rise when it's over? Come on.
Yeah,
Talking, getting all political and topical and shit. But I don't know, man. I liked Dokken when I was younger. And then I got to a point where I always had a hard time with Don Dokken's vocals. He has a very weak vocal style to me. It's pretty, but it's weak. And I shelved them, and now I find myself going back and listening to all the early ones and kind of liking it again. I think it's a nostalgia thing. Yeah, it's cool to get this for $20. Plus, I think I got
Those
a
Tom hits on "In My Dreams," man.
Yeah. Huge. And then the weekend before, we went to another record store, this time in Grayling, Michigan, which Grayling, there really isn't anything. There's a military base in Grayling. Lake Marguerite is in Grayling, but other than that, there is not much reason to go to Grayling other than get on the freeway. But there's a pseudo-punk record store there called Rotten Princess Records. I know, it's weird. Very small.
The whole town is a fire plug. It's
pretty much.
Yeah.
But I end up walking out of there with the last Doom album. World of Shit is the name of it. UK crust punk, classic band. It's, not reinventing the wheel here, of course, but it's a good record. Like the cover art, it's a little bit different, but yeah, I had to go out of there with something. We were looking, my kid picked up this record. He's like, "Dad, why is there fake poop smeared all over this record?" And the guy comes around the counter. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's a compilation, man. That's got G.G. Allen on it, and da-da-da. That's why it's on there. It's like a tribute." And it's got. And Parker's like, "What? Who's G.G. Allen?" And it's still, that doesn't answer my question why there's poop smeared all over it. And I'm like, "Don't worry about it." So he went to put it back in, and he like dropped it into the thing, and the guy's like, "Oh, that's an original pressing, man." And I'm just like, but he's like, "Dad, so what? It's still got fake crap on it." But yeah, I'm like, still, you have to handle records carefully when you're in a record store. You don't dive bomb them into the thing, because yeah, fake crap or not, it probably was worth some money. But anyway, yep. World of Shit, Doom. I've got a couple of their albums, and it was only $20. Somebody bought it from him, took it home, spun it, didn't like it, and brought it back. So I got a discount. So we'll take it. Doom. But that's that. And tonight we are here. TJ decided to change things up a little bit for his picks, which is fine. We're doing a little versus thing. We are, he pit Nails, You'll Never Be One of Us up against Warp Chamber's Implements of Excruciation. You'll Never Be One of Us came out in 2016 on Nuclear Blast. Implements of Excruciation came out in 2020 on Profound Lore. Both albums are under 30 minutes long. Nails, I can give you one little thing about this. You'll Never Be One of Us is the third studio album by American hardcore punk band Nails, released on June 17, 2016. It is the band's first album issued through Nuclear Blast Records. It's their longest release to date at 21 minutes and features their longest song, They Come Crawling Back, which runs for 8 minutes. The record was produced by Kurt Ballou of Converge. I don't know if I'd call this straight up hardcore punk. I think that is being, it's power violence. There's some
not at all.
Grindcore / hardcore. This isn't a punk album at all.
No. And Warp Chamber, there isn't much on here, so I'm just reading off the Encyclopedia Metallum site. The band, their first demo came out in 2018. They were signed by Profound Lore. Implements of Excruciation, as I said, came out in 2020. The band's from the United States. No location is identified. They're still active. Their themes are science fiction. So yeah, we have two albums that are somewhat comparable, I guess, due to their length. But what do you think, Kellen? What did you think about this whole experiment we're doing this week?
Yeah, I will kind of, I guess.
You're welcome.
Seat my pants. We'll see how this goes. I guess I'm talking about initial impressions for both of them.
Both, yes, yes.
Okay. So Nails is a band that I kind of have kept some distance from. For some reason, like I never got around to listening to this band. I'd heard a lot about them, and the story was, yeah, it's hardcore grind with Swedish death metal guitar tone, and that was kind of the short story I was given. So I never spent any time with this band. So I was interested to kind of dive in this week. Warp Chamber, I remember, so interestingly enough, it was a little bit of a flashback because this came out in March of 2020, and I remember it specifically because it was like right before your COVID streams. I remember like the COVID streams happening sometime that spring and listening to this record at the time. So, yeah, I remember it, and I will kind of get into my impressions, but I did have some experience with that record, pretty new to actually listening to the Nails.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, for Nails, actually, I like those guys. I actually have all their full links. I'll even put that in quotes. Unsilent Death, Abandoned All Life, and You'll Never Be One of Us. So yeah, definitely familiar with those guys. I liked it. I was a little stunned at all the hype that kind of went around You'll Never Be One of Us, because I liked it, but I think it was like given the number one spot on Decibel that year. I thought that was a little strange, for a 20-minute grind album. But that said, I do like the band. I thought they made a good impression on Southern Lord when they were on that label, and there's some great songs on You'll Never Be One of Us as well. But Warp Chamber I've never heard of. Man. I liked it right away. I like messaged TJ right away. I was like 2 seconds in. It's good. There's actually some of this stuff that reminds me of the Glorious Dead, man. Some of the pukey style vocals and stuff. I was like, all right, great riffs here. Definitely fun listen. I a lot of variety in the riffs, which was an interesting contrast with more like the pure grind hardcore thing going on with Nails. So yeah, it's gonna it's gonna be an interesting conversation tonight. I think the bands are very different, other than the short length of their albums. I don't think they have much in common, which is great. It's gonna should spark a lot of discussion here. So yeah, those are my first impressions.
All right. For me, first impressions, Nails kind of hit the same way that late 90s Relapse bands had, which I like. I mean, there's moments like the first couple songs, the production and the writing style slightly reminded me of Nazem, not as good as Nazem, but kind of in that vein. I remember too the buzz around this band. It was I think I seen the video for You Will Never Be One of Us, and it's good, but yeah, it was good to hear the album. It solid first impression. And for Warp Chamber, I struggle with this one. I think the music is pretty solid. Solid modernized death metal. It sounds very much in line with a lot of things that's going on right now. The one sticking point for me is the vocals. I listen to the vocals. They're too low in the mix. And the guy sounds like a Hanna-Barbera, in Scooby-Doo, whenever the gang is being chased by like the monster for the episode that's actually a criminal in a mask, as they're chasing him through the haunted mansion. And at the end, they take off his mask, and I would have made it if it wasn't for you pesky kids. Well, that's what the guy's voice reminds me of, and I could not unhear it or unsee it in my head. And it just sounds like TJ assured me there was a lyric sheet. Oh, yeah. It sounds like he's doing the Donald Tardy Slowly Rot, just making noise. I think his vocals add little to the dynamics of the album. I think the album is otherwise musically really good. They go a little crazy with the false harmonics, but I mean, it's a solid record. And the vocals, if I can get out of my head and look past it, they're low enough in the mix. I want more. I wanted more from the vocals, but yeah. TJ, what did you think?
Well, so Nails, I bought that I was seeing the hype and I wanted to hear what they had going on. I checked them out, whatever, and bought the album. I loved it. I don't know where the hardcore, I don't know. To me, it's like grind with splashes of death metal influence to me, but maybe that's just the kind of quasi HM2 sound that they have. It's like it's there, but it's not. I don't know, but I fell in love with it. I think the album just absolutely crushes. I think, for a modern band, they're just they're not breaking any rules. They're not doing anything new, but they just kind of own it so well. And the same for the Warp Chamber. That's something I found on one of my, Ethernet deep shopping excursions into the, point and click into the Etherverse looking for stuff. And I can't even remember who I bought it from. If I bought it from Dark Descent or one of the other distros, I don't remember. It was just something I bought. I think I listened to a blurb of it and thought it was cool. And then, I think the record's great. I've always liked it. I think, the vocals are goofy. I still can't, maybe anybody, Marty, a while back, you were listening to a band that was doing something similar with their vocals. It was like all kind of like wheezes and spitting and stuff. And I can't remember what it was. And I remember making a crack about it. And you were like, oh, I really like this. And the guy was just gagging and hacking and stuff. And I can't remember what it was you were listening to. And it's been driving me nuts.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago. But if anybody can think of something, anybody that does, something similar, maybe put it in the comments. But I think it's cool. It's weird and it's off kilter. I've pulled the lyric sheet out a couple times, and he is kind of sort of following it sometimes, but I think that, beyond all that, they're presenting something that's kind of unique, and I don't think it doesn't fit the music. It's definitely odd to be certain, but as far as that goes, but the music, I think it's just a riff fest on this record. It's just so much solid writing in such a short space of time. But the songs are hefty, but then there's just so few of them. It's kind of disappointing. You want it to be a little bit more, but yeah, I ended up really just there's so much cool stuff on it that I couldn't help but like it. So overall, that my first impressions haven't changed. I've had these albums orbiting the table here since for a while, and I've just always been kind of vacillating back and forth between, like, read the room, from whatever was picked before me versus whatever, and after this, after that, theater tragedy, it was like, it's got to happen. But then I'm like, well, 21 minutes, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute, why not just do some math and add the numbers together and do 2 records? So but yeah, I wanted to bring them on and off a few times, but why not bring them both, and 2 birds, 1 stone, what have you? So yeah, I think they're I like them both. I don't know that I'm going to be picking them apart too much tonight, but yeah, so there's that. And I did send you a question, Marty. Did you get it?
No.
I sent it to your email. I didn't know where else to send it.
Well, go ahead and drop it on us.
Well, just I have to go digging for it then, because you didn't read your email.
Which email did you send it to? The Heavy Metallurgy email?
No, I sent it to your Bine Room one. I don't know.
Charter made changes, and I can't. I don't know. I don't check that email much. Here we go. I found it.
Did you find it?
So here we have 2 excellent examples of modern bands doing it the classic way: death metal and grind. Question is, how do we instinctively know the difference? Is it just years of listening and conditioning? Is it the shape and form of these 2 distinct but sonically similar bands? Is it a little of both? What defines the traits? What truly says Nails is a grindcore band? Even that tag isn't exact for them, as they do exhibit an obvious death metal persona. And Warp Chamber is purely death metal? ? So you're asking, how can we tell?
I don't know what I'm saying. You figure it out. Yeah, I'm just looking at the sonics of these bands, you got two bands, 21 minutes and just barely 30 minutes, and they share a lot of parts, but they're still, we all kind of know what they are regardless of it. I mean, is it just because the songs are 2 minutes long versus 6 minutes long? Is that all it is? What's your opinion of that take? That's all. That's really kind of what I'm driving at. Is it just because we can tell by the shape and the form of the way it's presented, or is it more than that? I mean, like, take for instance, you look at like a band like Brutal Truth, and you go from the first record, which was really like just an extreme death grind record, really, and then you get to the later era of the band. Because I was listening to Sounds of the Animal Kingdom today too,
God,
and
I haven't
actually
spun that in a while.
I didn't care for any of that later era, and I'm listening to it today. I'm like, God, why didn't I like this? This is actually really cool.
It's good.
And I just remember it so different for some reason. I haven't listened to it in so long, and you listen to that, and it's like, it's so purely, I mean, that's grind, but it's like, it's so distinct from what Nails is doing, but you still know that they're bedfellows, It's like, and it's like, is it just because we know? I mean, I don't know. You get what I'm driving at? I don't know if it makes any sense at all.
What do you think, Kellen?
Right. So, to understand this, where's the line of division? Like, what is the point we can say this is clearly a grind leaning record versus one that's a death metal record? I guess is the summation of how I'd approach that question. So yes, I mean, length of the songs is one part of it. Another key thing is like the vocal style for me is a clear like dividing line between these two projects. One is clearly coming from like a grind background. I also think just the riffing style is a part of it. There are plenty of hardcore elements to Nails in terms of the guitar work, despite its production quality and their choice in sort of guitar tone, where I really do think the riffing style throughout the entirety of the Warp Chamber, I never really got that that's a grind or hardcore riffing style.
Yeah.
So it's a good question as to when, like, in the how many countless hours we spend listening to records, like what is the tipping point or when we internalize those differences. But I think for at least the group of us, like, we've gone through that. I didn't need to listen to the entirety of these records, as short as they are. It probably within the first couple of minutes where all of us could clearly see they were dividing lines in terms of how these songs are being built. So it's a good question as to like how many hours potentially it would take an individual to do that. But for me, it's primarily outside of the song length, I would say vocal style and riffing style that separate these two bands.
What about you, Jim?
Well, the guy from Nails was in Terror, which is just a straight hardcore band, and so, when I listened to Nails, like, I fully expected to hear hardcore and those sort of open riffs with the D beats behind them. I mean, that's total hardcore. It's not just crust. That's real hardcore. No, I'm not, real is a bad word. That is hardcore, just like it's there in crust as well. So it's there, and sort of like that kind of like, earnest shouting vocals, like, to Kellen's point. Yeah, that's a very definitive line in the sand between these bands, and also like the lyrical content, I mean, Nail songs are very emotional, very rage driven, where Warp Chamber is going for something that's very alien in sound and alien in lyrical concept. And even from the title, from the name of their band, I mean, you're like, Warp Chamber, okay, cool, Factor 5, Go Sulu, so we can already hear that. So I mean, for me, I don't hear anything similar between these two bands. They're totally different. I hear, nigh technical, like I'd say like almost like progressive death metal and Warp Chamber, just because of like the variety of riffs, the number of riffs per song. Like, they remind me of like like a much less complicated Stargazer in terms of their arrangements, but in terms of like the warmth of the sound and in terms of like how many like riffs they throw in per song, like I kind of felt a little bit like Stargazer-ish, but like I said, not from the technical standpoint, but just in terms of like the way the riffs are kind of like put together. Where, you know, again, for me, Nails has, you know, a grindcore approach that definitely stems from hardcore with its, you know, earnestness in its approach, but also, you know, get in and get out, you know, no leads. There are things that sound like they're like noise leads, I guess you could call it, here and there. You know, even if these songs weren't like a minute, 2 minutes long, if you were to extend them out, you know, they would just sound more grindcore or more hardcore than grindcore to me. What gives, you know, Nails a certain death metal ferocity, you know, outside of like the raging hardcore is that production. You know, I mean, especially Kurt Ballou's production on this album, you know, distorted bass and guitars are all the way up. I mean, and vocals are all the way up, and it gives us very crushing feeling. And the other two Out Nails albums are like that too. You know, they really do benefit from like it feels like you're at the show with your head in a speaker, you know, when you're listening, and that's at any volume, you know, but especially on this album, but definitely on the other ones too, you know, almost to the point where it's like noise, you know. So it's like in a much more overdriven HM2 sound. It's not like a clean HM2 sound that we're going to get from Dismember or something like that. You know, this is like, you know, there's a rat pedal that is like cabled in right after that HM2 that makes it super nasty, super dirty, or maybe even a tube screamer on there too. There's definitely like feels like there's a tube screamer on that distorted bass sound. So yeah, you know, I feel like, you know, Warp Chamber kind of sounded to me like, you know, almost, and this is not a dig. I love like, you know, like underground sound, you know, but it has more of a demo kind of a feel. Like it sounds really raw and you know, but also composed in terms of its structure. The songs are very, very, very well composed. It's only raw in its overall sound, but yet there's warmth there, you know. So yeah, I mean, for me to AB these bands, like, you know, for my ears, there's nothing similar about them at all, except that they're both like, for me, really enjoyable listens. You know, completely different vibes, and I like them for totally different reasons. You know, so yeah, it was. I'm glad, you know, that TJ decided, instead of picking two bands that were really similar, pick for me two bands that were really different, because that, for some weird reason, it made it actually harder for me to decide what I liked more. And you know, I've come to that decision, but we'll get to that. But it kind of threw me off a little bit and made it challenging this week. So it was cool.
Well, for me, the simple answer to TJ's question is, well, punk and hardcore. That's the defining line between these two bands in particular. What makes something lean more grind? Well, it's typically a punk influence or a hardcore influence. In this case, in Nail's case, it's hardcore. It's more, he's fighting out against it, lyrically. I didn't dig deeply into the lyrics, but they're, you know, he's taking a swing at organizations or people or, you know, things, important things with his music, and you can tell it's a pissed off record. The Warp Chamber, it doesn't have an ounce of that punk or hardcore. It's just very much a modern death metal approach, and it seems like it's maybe more influenced by newer bands than older bands. To me, that's just, I don't get a big old school vibe from this album, from this Warp Chamber record. So that's a short answer for me. TJ, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think, to my own points, I think it's like, well, first let me qualify a couple things. So when I say similarities, I'm saying, you know, certain sonics that all these bands tend to share: blast beats and skating vocals, extreme production, things like that. Then the obvious differences, you know, I mean, they're just stylistically, you know, the way they present their riffs, the length of their songs, things like that. but it's like, I guess I wanted to dig down a little bit with my question on, what, and I think the answers are obvious, but, for the sake of conversation, it was just kind of what was on the top of my head. So,
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's, with the grind stuff, those of us have been there for a long time. We know, where the aesthetic comes from and what it's born out of, the kind of the anti-establishment punk rock scene, and, these bands that were reaching for more and more extremes, and, the inventing the blast beat and all this other stuff. And then all that morphs over into, what's become, you look at like how Carcass started, or Napalm Death, and, and where they were early on, and then what they became, and where that kind of grind aesthetic just was kind of pushed to the side for more elaborate songwriting and more powerful riffs and things like that. But then they still held on to, the social political angles or whatever, don't eat cows, because Carcass doesn't like it, but that sort of crap. So I mean, to me, so that's my thing, it's like, and these bands are very different, but then at the same time, there's always those qualities that they share. And so that was kind of what I was driving at. I mean, I don't think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to listen to these two records and be like, well, they don't sound anything like each other. And it's like, no, they don't. But at the same time, it's like, why, how is it we define the one versus the other based solely on just, well, these songs are only a minute and a half long, and and he's singing about, I don't like the cut of your jib, so you'll never be one of us, that kind of thing, versus whatever he's gurgling about at Warp Chamber, so
Nothing.
Yeah, well, it's there's you should see there's a couple of those songs, the lyrics are just like, really? Is he really saying all that stuff? It's kind of interesting.
The enunciation is in his finer suit.
Well, I don't know. I think he's trying.
I mean, he keeps it good and sick. I mean, he keeps it sick,
Yeah.
which is cool, but it's like,
Yeah. But again, so yeah, that was kind of, I guess that was just kind of the gist of my question. I knew it was really not that deep of a question, and I think most of us who have been listening to metal for eons, we all kind of know the answers, but there's still, I think there's nuance there, because so much has crossed over, and everybody's tried everything, and put every flavor into the sauce. You can't sit there like, yeah.
Hey, Pat, what's up?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's we're mad at you because yeah. But so yeah, there's been so much crossover, and there's been so much blending, and everybody looking for something new and different and whatever. And here we are today, where the best thing of the best bands is to just take something and own it, and make it theirs, rather than trying to reinvent something, because I don't know, where can you go from where we are now, but so yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the best question in the world, but I gave it a shot. So there you go. If you don't like it, then I don't care.
Would you guys say that there's probably, I hear a lot of like post Harmony Corruption, Napalm Death in that Nails record. I hear a little Nasm, but I do hear.
Well, I mean, I hear
some more middle era.
I hear
Napalm
all
Death.
that. I mean, to me, that's what I hear.
Smear campaign era.
When I listen to that record, I'm hearing these guys emulating. If it's, to me, it sounds more like when the band started leaning into the death metal. Is what it sounds like, and becoming that more. That's what I get out of this record. I've never listened to a lot of hardcore. I think I own 2 hardcore records, and I've never listened to them, and they're decent. Zayo and some other band, that's an independent band that my old band played a show with 1,000 years ago. Akira, they were called. I don't. So picking up on that, I get it. The hardcore. It's like when somebody you mentioned it tonight, and I'm like, oh, I guess I think I've heard 4 Hatebreed songs, so I pick up on it.
Well, you've heard them all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so so there's that angle there, I guess. So, and then Jim, you said something about the one guy was in Terror or whatever, so that makes me want to. I need to check that out maybe, but yeah, so I mean, I get that, but when I listen to this record, that's not what I'm picking out. You know, for me, it's like I'm hearing these guys, you know, and they're kind of emulating, you know, what Napalm Death did on Harmony Corruption or what, you know, in that vein. But then they're, you know, but they swung it back into the, you know, the grindier, shorter songs, with the exception of the 8-minute track and the end of the record, which is more of a slower piece, really. But that's not unheard of for grind bands to do slower stuff too. You know, they started, you know, some of the bands started messing around with that as well. So
I will say it was interesting today. I didn't pull it out on my What's Been Spinning, but after listening to the Nails album in particular, I ended up listening to, it has nothing to do with it, but I all of a sudden had a weird hair up my butt to listen to Entombed's Wolverine Blues, and I also listened to Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth, which I haven't spun in a long time, and it was fun. It was a fun HM2 trip down memory lane. It must have been the guitar tone. But all right, let's discuss the musicality and composition of these two albums. We'll start with you, Jim.
You know, I think both are impressive for very different reasons. You know, like I alluded to, you know, Warp Chamber, you know, just like a bevy of great death metal riffs there. You know, I hear like a lot of immolation love. You know, you mentioned earlier the harmonics, Marty, and you know they're there.
They go a little crazy on this record with harmonics.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me. I liked it, and you know, and I'm always a big fan of when you know a band like, you know, just kind of, you know, rolls into some like a slow triplets, and they do that on, you know, which song was that? Harvesting the Life Force of a Crumbling Orb. And it just really just kind of wrote out the last half of that song really well. And I love that when you're coming from like just, you know, pummeling death metal and you just roll in some really powerful triplets, you know. So, you know, that's sort of like interplay, you know, rhythmically with riffs and you know, and not knowing what's coming was really great. And you know, and I loved how, you know, they did plenty of bass breaks, distorted bass breaks. You know, there's just like one moment in the first track, Abdication of the Mind, where just kind of like opens up, and then it's just, you know, just kind of like the notes just kind of ring out, and then just the distorted bass and the drums come in, and they do that thing where they got it mixed at center, you know, center channel, where it feels like it's coming at your face when you're listening to it. You know, I love that studio thing that bands do sometimes. You know, Disma did it on Towards the Megalith, where it was like mixed center channel, the distorted bass, and it's just always right there, just really cutting, and that's how they did here. So really, really cool on Warp Chamber for that. And you know, on the same token, Nails, you know, again, you know, in a very short amount of time, there's a lot going on. You know, it's not like if you take the riffs, you know, one by one and say, oh, this is like, it's not like super hard to play or anything like that. But, you know, there's a lot of editing you can tell went into this, because like we're only going to play, you know, we're going to make sure this riff works. You know, we're going to keep editing until it's the right one that goes with this one. And so it feels like even though the songs are short, like every riff kind of matters, you know, when you're listening to Nails. And they're not afraid of a good triplet run too. I think is it Life is a Death Sentence, or I'm trying to remember which one it was. Oh no, it's Savage Intolerance. They're definitely, and yet again, it's kind of, that's one thing they have in common, TJ, is both these bands at near the end of one of their songs kind of go out the door with like really raging heavy triplets, and I really like that. So and you know, and of course Kerbaloo, we all know, great producer, you know, God City Studios, and you know, and the distorted bass sound on Nails is just massive, dude. It is so powerful. It is always there, and you know, I absolutely love it. You know, it's really great. And, you know, I mean, you know, at the time the band was a 3-piece. And so, you know, I think it really, you know, it's an honest, like, you know, appraisal of their sound to have like just guitar and bass way up front, you know, because, you know, from what I heard, I haven't seen them live, but that's what it is. It's like, it's just the all three, instruments, drums, bass, guitar, are all the way up, and that's what it feels like on this record. And so yeah, a lot of care and sort of like the structural composition of Warp Chambers, like putting together of like, really kind of a smorgasbord of riffs between songs. There's only 4 songs here, but there's a lot of riffs in each song, and they're longer, and then there's, in Nails, there's a lot more songs. They're super short, but each one seems to make sense. There's only one song where I felt like it felt a little phoned in to me, but every other song on You'll Never Be One of Us, like, makes sense to me, and is very, kind of like energy inducing. So yeah, I think they've in their own respective ways, one from being like, kind of like that, let's bring it down to bare bones way, and the other way from like, hey, we've got a lot of riffs, but all of them are going to work well together. These guys, they took time with their compositions in very different ways, and one is more of a construction, one is more of a destruction. So or deconstruction. That's the word I want.
Well, I kind of like the destruct. That works too. Yeah. Right on. Kellen.
So for Warp Chamber, I actually hear a lot of like fascination. The younger bands that were coming around who were really interested in Finnish death metal, I think that they're playing in that space. When I listen to this record, it's also sounds though like a very young band that does not know how to do a lot of self-editing. I would have really enjoyed more concise songs. I get they're doing this sort of sci-fi sprawling riff work, but I just had a difficult time taking in often these longer songs that I felt were sort of stitched together, but were sort of unresolved ideas. And what did not help is like those Finnish, like if you're listening to Demolic or Adremelik, like those songs, there's a weirdness to Finnish death metal. And I think they tried to capture that by having these echoed, indistinct vocals, when I think these songs would have been better served letting the vocals actually punctuate where it structurally it needs to evolve, end, and move on. They just sort of kept on flowing, and I did not feel a sense of like direction, or there was like to Jim's point about having every riff have meaning or purpose. I think they have a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of technical proficiency in terms of the guitar work, good playing, good musicianship, but just too many sort of scrambled ideas on the within each song. So to me, that was kind of like a detraction. There's potential, I guess, in some sense of the actual guitar ideas, but they just need greater sort of control and structure. Nails to me sounds like a band, like, Marty brought up Nasm. Like, I remember getting to Nasm or Rotten Sound at the turn of the millennia, and like those were very much gateway bands for me. That got me in that time period. Oh, I died. Hold on.
Don't die. Okay.
Well, that was fun.
We hear the shuffling.
Huh.
Okay, I'll go and come back.
Okay. All right. Well, there he is.
Oh.
Oop. There you are.
The return. Okay. The return.
Anyway.
You can do it.
So for Nails, yeah, they sound to me like if you were, I don't know, a decade younger than I am, and you were getting into more extreme music, Nails would be a perfect gateway band. They've got enough like punk hardcore stuff going on if you were not unfamiliar with death metal, but they're like that transition. So I had that kind of experience listening to them, to their credit, and that will also go along with sort of their grind and HM2 sort of guitar tone. We'll get to the production later on, but I very much agree with Jim's assessment, and which remind me a lot of also Kurt Ballou from Converge. It sounds like a Converge record in terms of the sound and the energy on this. I think it's actually a pretty. I'm unfamiliar with their earlier records, so I'll take this in stride. It sounds to me like they have a nice balance of some parts of grind, kind of thrashy hardcore, and there's some groovier elements on a couple of these songs that are sort of more death metal leaning with some double bass sort of flowing along. So the songwriting here, I think, is actually pretty balanced. Maybe, for some, the production is kind of the iffy part for me. If it sounded a little bit different, I maybe would be more energetic and excited about the songwriting. But in terms of if I have to choose between the two of them, I'm going with the Nails record all day long.
TJ.
So I don't have any real big gripes about anything that these bands do. The Nails record, I think these guys just the delivery and how ferocious these songs are, I just think is just so kind of perfect on the Nails record. They just kind of that whole kind of aesthetic just kind of drips from these tracks. And I just think they do such a great job at doing so much in such a short space of time. And the record, these tracks just really kind of pummel you. The 8-minute song is a bit of a more of it drags and grinds, but it's still just a very punishing record in my opinion, anyway. As far as the Warp Chamber stuff goes, I agree with Kellen on the idea that I would have preferred this record. It would be cool if they would break these ideas up a little bit and put more thought into more material. I don't know what they're trying to achieve. Maybe it is the whole sci-fi thing and whatever. That's just the kind of the way it worked out. It's hard to know what they're doing. But for me, I feel like they really managed to connect the dots with these songs from front to back. None of these songs struck me. For me, you can always kind of tell when there's just like when a band is just trying to cram things in. And maybe that's the case with this, but I feel that they managed to connect the dots on the ends and make these songs work. I didn't feel like there was there's no spots in here where, like, why did that happen? And this totally lost me. And that timing change was weird. It just, everything felt really good to me throughout the entirety of, its epic 30-minute runtime. I like these tracks. The riffing, there's just so much inventive shit going on. It was hard for me to not just get caught up in there are spots where they just some killer stuff. Overall, I just, and they're all just really playing really well. And I don't know. I guess to Marty's point with the Warp Chamber, I suppose it is pretty in line with kind of the whole cavernous thing that was happening, over the last 10 years or so. I guess they're kind of in line with that. And, maybe that might have been, when I was out doing my shopping, that might have been what drew me in there, because I was kind of looking for a lot of these bands with Tomb Mold and what have you. To me, these guys stood out. I like this record a lot. So I don't know, but I still feel like there's a classic vibe that runs through this, or at least, there's a tip of the cap to, the bands that influenced them and had come before them, and it shines through in the writing. You guys, other than that, I think both records just for what they are, they're both, to me, I think they're both excellent records. I think Nails, they just deliver on every front with that, and the warp chamber is just so interesting. I like, you know, I think the vocals are cool. I think what he's trying to do, it's weird and shit, but I mean, I don't
I'm
know.
with you, Marty. Marty. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's all right.
I'm with you, TJ. I actually
Yeah.
like vocals too. I like how bizarre they are. I'm like,
Right. I mean, you know, you listen to somebody.
This is nuts. I like this.
Right. I think it's cool. You know, he's trying to do something weird and different, and I think it fits. It flows with the music, and it adds a really bizarre element. And you know, and I'm impressed by stuff like that, because I mean, it's like, you know, I like Attila's a vocalist that I really admire a lot. I don't listen to a ton of his bands, but the stuff that he does do that I enjoy, it's like, and he, you know, he's willing to he does things where I stop and give pause, and I'm like, I would not know how to present that creatively. I don't know how I would cross that line and be that theatrical or different, or, you know, to step out of what's comfortable and do something that would be, you know, off base from what's normal. And it's so, you know, and so when somebody does it and manages to pull it off, and to my ears, you know, I think it's really cool. And so, you know, I liked what was going on. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I wasn't gonna. There's much. I'm not really gonna be picking these apart too much. I really enjoy these records a lot. So, you know, yeah, that's that.
All right, for me, I'm going to start with Warp Chamber first. TJ mentioned inventive riffing and song structure. There's one thing I took away out of the 5 times I spun this record. I may not have spun it enough times, but I found my attention was wandering. I had a hard time listening to this record. It's not because it's bad. It's good. I mean, all the elements are here, although I didn't connect with the vocalist, which is fine. But the music itself, it's not reinventing the wheel, but the structure and the guitar stuff is very inventive. It's almost a little too over the top. And I like inventive on occasion, but I also like songs. I like a song to take me somewhere. When it's just a bunch of mishmash of riffs, technical riffs connected with false harmonic squawks. Every song to me, I out of the 4 songs on the album, I enjoyed the last one the most. I think it got it right the best. But there's nothing bad on the record. It's just very uninviting. There's not the songs. The songs are just very similar. They're all very perplexing, and not in necessarily a good way. I mean, I know that might, but that's cool, but I get what they're trying to do. I felt uninterested by what they're presenting. Solid, modern, really good. I hate bagging on it because it is so talented, but I couldn't connect with the music. I just couldn't connect with the music. There's too busy, too much similarities carried out between all 4 songs. Nails. Of the 2, that's going to be my victor at the end of this. When we get to the end, that's the clear winner here for me. But again, it's one of those things where I've heard it. I really enjoy Inhale Exhale by Nazem. I like some hardcore. I like some power violence stuff. It just doesn't, it doesn't seem like anything new other than you got someone by the neck and you're just like, each song is this over and over and over and over. You know the cover of AC's Everyone Should Be Killed. It's got the guy in the white shirt like beating on a guy with rage on his. That's what the sonic equivalent of this album, which I appreciate that. I get it. And the songs are short, but within a short period of time, they cover a lot of ground and there's a little bit of structure to it. They're easy to digest, even though it's just a clenched teeth, bare knuckle, smack fest. Yeah, and they mentioned the last song, They Come Crawling Back, 8 minutes long. I would have liked that maybe in the middle of the album. I don't know if that was the best way to end the album, but yeah, I mean, I'm going with Nails on this just because their songs, though I've heard it before, I maybe have heard it better, I maybe have heard it worse, but it's a solid record, but a little bit, even though it's very a hatred-filled record. It seems to be. I could comprehend what was going on a little bit better. Production. TJ, we'll start with you since you're at the bottom.
Yeah, I so with the nails, I love the production on that record. I love the kind of biting, raspy, scathing production that they gave it. It's like to me, when I listen to the and through headphones and through my stereo, it's like I pick up on the HM2, but it's something else. They're doing something to it. It's perfected in a different way. Jim's rat pedal analogy or tube screamer or something. Maybe that is what it is. They're overdriving the hell out of it and then leveling it off so it's under control or something. I don't know, but it's really cool how it kind of, to me, how it kind of peaks out there. But just the whole thing, I think, as a package, the production and the whole record, it's just got such a pulverizing feel to it, and I just really love it. With the Warp Chamber, to me, it's just a solid production, and there's nothing. It's not flashy. There's no frills to it. There's nothing crazy about it. Everything sounds really good. The guitars have good tone. The drums are there. The vocals are way under the mix. I mean, I like vocals kind of more in the song than on the song, and they are kind of like, I don't know, maybe this guy's a singer. Maybe he's got confidence issues, and who knows? Maybe that contributes to the whole aesthetic of what he's trying to accomplish. I don't know, but it would have been cooler if it was a little bit more out there. Maybe he wasn't sure of what he was trying to do too, but overall, I definitely like it. It's good. There's nothing special about it. But you can listen to the record and everything is there and it comes across really solid. So that's, yeah, for me, I think they're both really well done. And, Marty ran away. So,
Something's going on.
Uh-oh. There he is.
Kid was saying goodnight. All right.
Oh.
Are you done?
Oh, yeah, I'm over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim, sorry, I at the end I had to say goodnight to my son. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, production-wise, I like the production of both records. I already alluded to it earlier. I like Warp Chamber. It has a very, underground sound. It's very warm, it's a lot of riffs going on. There's a lot of like thirds and fifths that they play, which I like in death metal. And there's a lot of that going on, especially in my favorite song on that record, which I'll get to later. But I mean, there's no two ways about it, man. Kurt Ballou is an amazing producer, and the production on Nails is just, it blows it away. I mean, it's amazing, dude. I mean, it's so loud and
full throttle.
And and a lot, and not in the like, hey, this album's loud, it's too compressed, and people complain about these things. It's not like that. No, I mean that it's a loud band, and he was able to capture that. And because he plays in a loud band, he knows what that's all about. So I think he completely gets the vibe behind it. There's hardcore aesthetic, metallic / hardcore aesthetic that they both enjoy in their respective bands, and so he knows what to do to give that a lot of power. But even before Kurt, on their other two albums, I mean, that almost noise-ridden attack that these three guys were able to kind of conjure from like a really like shoddily wired HM2 pedal on both the guitar and the bass, and makes it sound really menacing. And every time I hear it, and I hadn't listened to this album in a long time, and and it was a good return, because I remember just like that, how much power comes through that. And while I was kind of still stunned in 2016 that it got like album of the year on a lot of lists, I mean, when I'm listening to it, and just in terms of the power, like it's not that hard for me to understand, because I understand there's a crushing vibe there that a lot of us can get behind, but yeah, I don't think either band are reinventing the wheel at all. I think Warp Chamber is definitely more experimental, and obviously that's arguably how much success they had with that. I feel like Nails was never trying to be experimental. This was just some angry hardcore dudes that love metal and grindcore, and this is what they came up with, and there's nothing wrong with that too. I think that whether you're trying to create atmosphere and showing off a little bit of technicality in your arrangements, or whether you're just coming from a place of like, I want to burn this place down, hand me a guitar. Both of those are valid points to begin and end from in your musical journey. Both of those are valid inspirations to want to create incendiary music. And so I think both of these bands have a legitimacy in that. One is trying to turn your head with just like stark weirdness and like an onslaught of like really tried and true death metal riffing styles. One is just like I want to get out of here. Someone let me out. I've got a can of gasoline in a match. Where do I start? And all of us that listen to extreme music can understand those vibes. And I know this was a question about production, but for me, like what inspires you to go after a certain sound, it is important as well, because it's usually the same thing that inspires you. Your songwriting inspires the kind of like, if you've got either the talent and or funds to create it, the end product the listener will hear too. There's sort of like a straight line from that inspiration to what the final produced output is going to be. And I think from that respect, both bands succeeded.
Mic drop. Holy shit, brother. Kellen. Follow that, bitch. They sound good. They're heavy. And
good, heavy. Yeah.
Heavy stuff,
But they got the chuggers. Yeah.
It's no Def Leppard high and dry, man.
It's not. No Mutt Lang, but
I don't know if this is the first record that Nails put out with Nuclear Blast. So I don't know how much of the production is a consequence of a major label sort of transition, but it reminds me of like what Converge sounded like back in whatever 2000. And because Kurt Ballew's like the guitarist for that band, or I don't know if they were still active or not, but it just has that I agree with the sense of presence on that record. Like it just sounds, the instruments are moved directly right up into the, in your face throughout the entire listen. So there's not a lot of space in terms of like room or ambience. It's all about sort of relating live energy. In addition to that, I just think it does sound. I remember listening to that sound, and the instrument also, for as large and amplified as they are, I've heard more sterile listens. So I think it's a success in that regard. Transitioning over to the Warp Chamber, like for me, there's something wrong with the way this band sounds. I actually think that they do a good job capturing a lot of like the guitar muting. I love that within death metals, when you can get whether like those triplets, that palm mute and like pick scrape, when you can get that leading edge distinction on a guitar with the death metal sound, I really dig that. And there's tons of sort of really intricate sort of thrashing, dense guitar work happening on this album that they're able to highlight. The bass presence is absolutely there. The drum sound, like it's a well-produced record. Everything about it sounds natural for a death metal record in 2020. It's just the vocal presence. It just sounds like he's not saying a word. He's just smearing himself across the songs.
Yep.
And
agreed.
And it's a distraction. It's not necessarily his placement in the mix, but so I don't have a problem in terms of the way his vocals are, used in terms of the production elements. I just they only serve as a distraction from what I think is sort of embedded within the guitar work, and it does not serve this album or the sound or the rest of the musicians in the band. I don't, sometimes when you listen to like a gore grind record and it's just pitch shifted nonsense over and blast beats, you don't know what they're saying. I get it. That's the aesthetic. I don't think if they're going for like classic Finnish death metal, using this approach vocally, I don't think is actually paying service to the records that they're attempting to sort of celebrate. So in that regard, I think it's kind of a detraction.
I would agree with you on your vocal assessment here on the Warp Chamber. And I think the Warp Chamber, maybe what you're picking up on the Finnish influences, there's a murkiness to this. Whether it's, obviously the vocals are very murky, but it's still, there's not enough enunciation. It's almost like another instrument in the background to me. But there's like, even though you could hear what's going on and everything, there's like a murkiness to the playing, or I don't know. I can understand where you're coming from with the Finnish idea. We're talking, what the hell are we talking about? Production. It just, to me, the Warp Chamber, the only real complaint is the vocals. Too low. It's too low in the mix, but they are of such a mindset that if they were turned up in the mix, would it be good? I don't know. Would it be a good thing? I don't know. The album to me is complex enough where there could have been no vocals on this and it would have been fine. It feels, these pieces feel a bit instrumental focused. They're so complex. Their nails is very much, they're throwing rage at you. And I love how everything is maxed out, yet there's still clarity between the instruments. You can hear everything. That's just a salute to the producer. He made sense of even though the riffs aren't super intricate or necessarily over the top fast, there are some grind parts on here, but the parts are simplistic enough where all that cuts through the distortion, the HM2, and both are produced very well. I have minor complaint with the vocals being low on the Warp Chamber, but then again, I have a problem with the vocals. So, let's talk about favorite, least favorite songs. TJ.
I love the title track, the opener on the Nails record. I like what they do with that little spoken thing that they do, and then I think the song just kind of delivers on all cylinders and tells you what's coming. I just think it's a really cool track. I love the whole record, so I don't really have any least favorites. And then the Warp Chamber, I like Abdication of the Mind is another one that stood out to me. I think all the songs are really cool. There's so many killer riffs. I think they put it together so well. I don't really have, other than that, nothing else to tear apart on there. So,
all right, Kellen.
Quick and concise. All right. Yes. So favorite songs on the Nails record, we'll start with that one, are Life is a Death Sentence. The sort of grind and thrash on that. Savage Intolerance has probably one of the more intense sort of breakdown moments on the record. And Into Quietus. So those are my three favorite. The Violence is Forever track, that one for me, it's like I want that to be a death metal song. They've kind of got this death metal groove on that, and I just kept on thinking this would be. Can I listen to whatever Dismember or Entombed instead? And then for Warp Chamber, my favorite is their shortest, Shadows of Long Forgotten Terror. And the most challenging for me was harvesting the life force of crumbling orb. Once again, it was difficult to take all of that song in, and there's not a lot of great sort of moments where they can break something down, build it up again. And I don't know, it's like one of those learn to walk before you run kind of deals. Like, this is your first full length and you're trying to do these very ambitious, long sort of built songs. I would have enjoyed a bit more structure and trying to get something right in a smaller piece, as opposed to trying to extend it much longer.
All right, Jim.
All right, so for me, Warp Chamber, it's Shadows of Long Forgotten Terror. I really love the riff variety in that song. There's a lot of, like I mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of thirds and fifths in there. It kind of remind me of, like, you know, some Domination era Morbid Angel, which, you know, I love that record. A lot of people don't, but I don't care what they think.
Oh, it's a great record.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you bury those tritones in deep distortion like that in a death metal song, you're always gonna grab my attention. So yeah, definitely for me, second track on that Warp Chamber is the winner. For Nails, I with Kellen, I love Life is a Death Sentence. That is a really great song. There's just he kind of has this like almost like a sludgy type riff at the beginning, which goes into hardcore, then it goes into grindcore. It just keeps getting more and more intense as it goes along. Really, really killer. Savage Intolerance is the one. Let's see, that I mentioned had the triplets in it. So yes, I agree with you there. That one's also really great. And yeah, man, I love the title track. I know it's divisive. I know some people on one side say, "Oh, it's tough guy metal." Oh, he's trying to say, he's trying to, like, put divisions between people. I don't know, man. I don't get that. I think what he's, it sounds to me more of a personal experience. Like he met someone that he felt was like a scene visitor that wasn't authentic, and it really bothered him, and maybe that. And he mentions in the song when you read the lyrics, like, yeah, I take you, you got your groupies around you, whatever. And I felt like he met someone that was just there for like maybe like whatever amounts to like local notoriety in this scene. I mean, this is there's relatively much fewer people into underground music, but it felt like a response to like a personal offense to me. But it's something I think that we can all relate to. I think that at the end of the day, we've all met someone that felt a little disingenuous. So
I think someone in the chat was saying that song was written after something about metal injection. It was geared towards those people or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's right or not.
The reason, like, yeah. I feel like it's not just like a blanket general statement, which would make it like a tough guy song. I felt like it came from a more personal place, but that made it more relatable to me because I've experienced that feeling. I mean, I haven't like said, "Hey man," except when
I don't think there's anything unreasonable in those lyrics at all about the sentiment that he expresses in there. I think it's a fair, the way he breaks it down. I mean, he's, there's plenty of people we can point at that and say, as much as you think you are with me, I know you're not, and you're never going to be. And so I think the sentiment is pretty fairly expressed in the short space.
Yeah. And so anyway, I really like it, but it's just great riffs and man, when it's fucking got a great head banging mosh part, man. I love that shit. I'm like, oh man, that's fucking awesome. It's fucking sweet, man. There's no denying it. I mean, you guys know me. I'm gonna be like Tom Araya, banging my head until after that, and put like a metal rod in my neck or something. So, but yeah, that's my assessment. The only song, two little minor criticisms here is Parasite. I feel like that one, the riffs in that one aren't as. It's the one song where the riffs aren't like they're put together well, but they're not as interesting to me. And also I get what they're doing on They Come Crawling Back. I do like that song, but I this is gonna sound weird, man, but I feel like it's too long.
Me too. Yeah.
The one song that's like more than a minute and a half, I'm like, hey, it's just too long, man. I would rather have done like 5 more grind songs,
Right.
But yeah,
All right. We started with TJ, right?
Yeah.
Did we? I'm lost. I messed
think
up the.
It's your turn.
Is it?
Yeah, because Kellen
Okay.
already. Yeah.
All right. We'll start with nails. It's just I would say the first 4 songs are great. It's just hit after hit. Again, guy and a wife beater beating the shit out of someone, just continually punching them. And they get to track 5. He gets tired, so he grabs a bat and then continues doing it with the bat for up until track 10. They come crawling back, and I'm with Jim that we're conditioned at this point. Minute 29, 45 seconds, 55 seconds, a minute 39, 326. That's kind of a long epic song for them. But all these songs are right around or under a minute. And you get to this 8-minute sprawling, slower, I don't want to say sludgy because it's not really sludgy. It's just kind of just a slower, heavier crawl. It's almost like their thoughts in the structure here was to, or in the track pacing was to, and giving the victim some reprieve. But I found the song probably would have sat a little bit better in the middle of in the track listing for me. It's not a bad song. It's just a little long and kind of a anticlimactic way to end a pretty much hammering album. So I have no real complaints other than that. The Warp Chamber, again, I've had some negative things to say about Warp Chamber, but it's not due to the talent. I think the songs are all really well done. They're very samey, but for some reason the Excellent in Chthonic Blasphemy, the last track, it's an 8-minute 28-second, second longest song on the album. For some reason that song, it just felt like they gave the riffs a little bit more room to breathe. There was a little more space in the song.
So now you like the 8-minute long song.
Well, in this context, yes. For some reason they got it. They're getting it dialed in a little bit on here, but yeah, but I have no real complaints with that whole, other than the fact that the songs sound very similar to each other. There's not a lot, but then again, you could say the same thing about Nails. But yeah. Judgment, final thoughts. Did I get everybody? I got everybody on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start with Kellen. Judgment, final thoughts. And who won? Who won this versus battle?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely Nails. And I'm just sort of burnt out on the death metal thing, but that's kind of been going on. But yeah, I the Warp Chamber
Just got a box of it, brother.
But this record, the Warp Chamber, I really actually at times they reminded me of Hyperdontia, which is a newer death metal band that I do like. But there's nothing. I don't want to slam it, too intensely. Just with a little bit more direction in terms of the songwriting and restraint, editing, and a vocal style that it just tries to do something a bit more. I don't want to. Sincere is the wrong word, but if you've got an incredibly elaborate set of lyrics, go ahead and use them and at least try to, add some punctuation to the songs. But so I don't want to be too harsh on it. The Nails for me, one here, people have been letting me know that I should go check out the other Nail records. So I will go and do so. I think that was actually a good contrast this week. It wasn't a band that was competing for a same space, and it was an interesting exercise for me. It's Nails all day long, though, between the two of these.
Jim.
I hadn't listened to, for whatever reason, Nails in a long while. And so when I first heard the first few riffs of Warp Chamber, I was like, this is going to be a lot closer than I thought. Cause I'm with TJ on Warp Chamber. I really like this record. And I feel like they're a lot more together maybe than Marty and Kellen feel that they are. I do hear what you guys are saying, that they're a young band, but I like what's there, and I feel like there's a lot of potential. That said, I do own all of Dale's records, and after I, through, You'll Never Be One of Us back on again for the first time in at least probably 4 or 5 years. Like, I was like, wait a minute, matter of how awesome this is. I really like this. And I did, as we got closer, to tonight, realize that I was having a more fun, listening to Nails, and then wanting to go back and listen to Unsilent Death and Abandon All Life. So yeah, I got to give it to Nails on this one, man. They crushed it. Their brand of just like, visceral, just ugly, loud, hard grindcore with hardcore elements. Really won the day for me. And someone said in the chat they have a new record coming out in the summer, and that's great because it's been like, I thought they were done. It's been like 8 years or something. So yeah, that's cool. And I'm curious to revisit their old stuff and see if I can get the same energy level from that as well. But yeah, Warp Chamber, like I said, no diss to them. I really enjoyed those 30 minutes. I think they're worth everybody's time. But yeah, it's Nails for me tonight. So.
TJ. So
I'm almost completely split on this. To me, it's for me personally. I mean, I picked these records, and going over it in my head, it's like I feel like if I were, number grade, I'd give them both a 9. But then to be completely, really kind of digging down on it, I'm going to have to side with the room a little more at this point until Marty's opinion, which I think we already know where it's going. But Nails kind of tips over a little bit and lets the balances kind of more in their favor. There's so much more, for lack of a little more polish, a little bit more conviction in the band and the release. And so it's just ever so slightly, I feel like I'm a little more over there, but I just absolutely think both of these records are killer. I like Jim says, I think that Warp Chamber, I'm feeling what they're putting down, and I'm feeling like there's a little bit more reason and logic behind what they're trying to accomplish. But I'm catching the points that Kellen's making, and maybe a little bit more pacing, a little bit more control, a little bit more, but at the end of the day, I think both of these slabs are pretty sick, and Nails is kind of coming up near the more on top for sure.
All right, did I get you, Kellen? I did.
You did.
Everybody, it's me. Okay,
Mario, are you okay? Are you having problems tonight?
I don't know. I'm having trouble.
Yeah,
I'm having trouble
figuring. He's not having his White Claws, and he thought he's off.
I got him. We're all good. We're
Oh,
good.
maybe you had too many of them.
Maybe. Well, for me, Nails wins because it's more of a party record. I could see this one at Fat Camp, air guitars and, shaking the fist. Like the party metal.
Wife beater fist fights.
Wife beater fist fights. Yeah. Shooting each other with BB guns.
Last year's Fat Camp was a 4 drunk man sing along to Nevermore.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
That was pretty good. There's video evidence.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll do some final product with you guys next time.
Hell yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed for what the Nails is. I enjoyed it. Again, it's an album I avoided. I feel like I had my moment with this style of music. Like I said, the mid to later 90s era of Relapse or into the 2000s, I was way into this type of stuff. I was into Converge. I was into Dillinger. I was into ISIS, and not that ISIS is like this, but I was into that stuff big time. I haven't touched it since then. It was like a phase, and I've kind of moved on, and I don't care if I revisit it. I kind of know what it does. The Warp Chamber. I look at bands like Demolic for instance. Here's a Finnish band, very technical, killer finish. You got Predator vocals. The guy sounds like the Predator from, the Arnold movie. But even though it's super technical, there's songs there. There's things that come back. There's these technical goofy riffs that repeat. There's song structure. I don't get that from the Warp Chamber. I don't get the welcoming, here's some reoccurring stuff. It's just false harmonic breaks and this and that and whatever. Songs bleed together. Again, I think it's super talented. Don't get me wrong here. I don't want to be that guy because it doesn't suck. It's very good. I just think the songs are missing something. They're missing songs. The songs are missing songs other than a collection of cool riffs. That's just my opinion on that. So yeah, I think it's a good record. And at the end of the day, do I need either one of these in my collection? I don't know that I do. I prefer the Nails. It'd be one of those things I listened to the day I got it. I'm like, cool. And then it would go into the collection and sit there. It just would. And yeah, of course, most of the stuff I buy is probably the same way. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with that. So yeah, Nails wins. It was a fun, it's a fun exercise, TJ. I know we gave you shit about it, of course, because that's just what we do here. But and like Chris here from Depeche Commode was saying, he likes the new shootout format. Maybe we'll revisit this again. It can't be two 70-minute long albums we're shooting out against each other. It's just not gonna. That's not gonna happen in a week span. But also TJ made the comment, and I agree with it. We're probably gonna finish our cycle of picks. And then we're going to go up to the viewer's choice again for, it's time for you guys to select a bunch of stuff and we'll each pick one and then have I don't remember how we did. We'll talk about that at the end of this rotation, but, soon it'll be the viewer's choice, picks for us to listen to next. So, but I do believe for next week, it is our friend, Jim, the Silver Vortex.
It is. Yeah. And I do have something picked, but it bothers me that you haven't heard Massacre, so I'm like really tempted to change my pick to that. So I don't know. Do I change?
Well, I'll get to it. Well, there's pick what you're going to pick. We'll get back to it. I got a whole list of
shit. Well, we're
here.
going 88, buddy. We're going Nuclear Assault.
Oh, I love that record. I don't even have to listen to that record. It's part of the DNA. It's part of the DNA.
Gotta have it.
Nuclear Assault for those playing the home games.
Home game.
Vibe. Awesome pick. Good one. I was afraid you were going to pick Suicidal. How Can I Laugh Tomorrow? I hate that record. I'm like, you showed it a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, don't.
I showed Join the Army. That's
okay. Yeah. Well, cool. That's it. Fun exercise again. Thank you everybody for joining us. Show notes Friday. We don't know yet. One of those things. Kellen, what you got going on? Anything coming up that we need to be made aware of?
This weekend on Sunday afternoon, I want to say 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I'm not sure. Jeff over at Gas Mask and Hand Grenades, we have a group of us talking about traditional heavy metal records. He's got one of his desert island scenarios. So myself and a handful of other YouTube.
I backed out of it yesterday. I feel bad, but I couldn't spend the whole day. I couldn't do it. It looks like it's going to be fun though.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. So I think you can look for that over on his channel. And I'll do a quick plug for a friend of the Heavy Metallurgy show, Lee, over at Heavy Art Talk. Just did a t-shirt, I think, also for him over for that channel. So Lee, if you have not checked out Heavy Art Talk, he's got an amazing channel, and he just made another killer t-shirt design. So go check that out.
Very cool indeed. Jim, what you got going on? Anything coming up?
No, I do have some demos to check out that people have been sending me. I just keep forgetting about them, but some interesting sound. They sound interesting though, so maybe I will have something in the coming weeks. But
awesome.
No news yet.
Cool. TJ, what you got going on?
Really?
Right on.
We're gonna do a deep dive into we're gonna do a deep dive over on my Ted's Happy Heavy Metal Hour channel. We're gonna get down on the latest Donnie Benet record. Yeah.
All right. I thought you were going to say Donny Osmond there for a second. Anyway,
no.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Good turnout tonight. You guys rule. We'll see you next time.